My name is Olivia Carter. Standing alone while 200 guests enjoyed their 5-course meal at my mother-in-law's $2 million birthday gala in Rome, I heard my husband's words echo through the grand ballroom. Oops, we miscounted. 5 years of being the wrong kind of daughter-in-law. 5 years of forced smiles and swallowed pride, all crystallized in that single moment of deliberate humiliation. As I stood there, every eye in that glittering room fixed on me. The Clarks had no idea they'd just made their biggest mistake. They saw an unwanted outsider. They didn't see the woman who had orchestrated every single detail of their precious celebration. If you're watching this, please subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. This is the story of how one miscount cost the Clark family everything they held dear. 5 years ago, I met Ethan Clark at a charity gala in Boston. I was there managing the event. He was there as the golden son of one of Boston's oldest families. The attraction was instant. Ethan was charming, attentive, everything his family was not. Within 6 months, he proposed with his grandmother's ring in the public garden. I thought I was living a fairy tale. The first crack appeared at our engagement party. Evelyn Prescott Clark, my future mother-in-law, toured my parents' modest home in Brookline with barely concealed disdain. "Your parents' living room has more character than square footage," she said, her smile sharp as cut glass. My mother, a retired teacher, and my father, who ran a small accounting firm, were not their kind of people. I later learned Ethan had practically been engaged to Victoria Ashford before me. Victoria came from old railroad money, spoke fluent French, and attended a Swiss finishing school with Ethan's sister. The Clarks had been planning that union for years. Then Ethan met me, and in what his family considered a bout of temporary insanity, chose love over lineage. "She's refreshing," I once overheard Ethan tell his mother. "Refreshing?" Evelyn Prescott had replied. "That's what you call sorbet between courses, not a wife." But Ethan stood by his choice, at least publicly. He held my hand at family dinners, even as his mother forgot to set a place for me at her bridge club luncheons. He kissed my cheek when his father questioned my state school education. I convinced myself his love was enough. What I didn't know then was that Victoria never truly left the picture. She remained in their social circle, a constant reminder of what Ethan should have chosen. And somewhere in my husband's wallet, tucked behind his credit cards, he still carried her photo from their college days. The exclusions started small, almost imperceptible. Family meetings about the Clark Foundation would happen while I was conveniently sent on errands. "Olivia, dear, would you mind picking up the flowers for tonight's dinner?" Evelyn Prescott would ask, just as the family attorney arrived. By the time I returned, decisions were made, documents signed, and I'd find them sharing cognac in the library. The official family portrait session was my first real humiliation. The photographer, a renowned artist who'd captured 3 generations of Clarks, had been booked for months. I'd bought a new dress, had my hair styled professionally. Then, just as we were about to begin, Evelyn Prescott touched my arm. "Oh, Olivia, dear, we're taking the official portrait now. Family only, you understand? Perhaps you could help the caterer with lunch. Christmas brought more careful cruelties." While Ethan's siblings received heirloom jewelry and rare first editions, I got gift cards. "We thought you'd prefer to choose something yourself," Evelyn Prescott would say as Ethan's sister unwrapped their great-grandmother's pearl necklace. "Mom's just traditional. Give her time," Ethan would say whenever I mentioned feeling excluded. "You know how Boston families are, but I was building something they didn't see." While they debated my place at family dinners, I was quietly growing my event planning business. My company, Carter Events International, began landing major contracts. I organized galas for tech executives, coordinated weddings for international clients. My revenue hit 7 figures last year, though the Clarks never once asked about my work. To them, I was just Ethan's unfortunate choice, a phase he'd eventually outgrow. The photo from that family portrait still hangs in Evelyn Prescott's foyer. 7 Clarks in perfect formation. If you look carefully at the edge, you can see my shadow on the marble floor, waiting just outside the frame. The Clark Foundation's annual charity gala should have been my moment. I'd volunteered to coordinate it, spent weeks perfecting every detail. The night arrived, and I wore a gown that cost more than my parents' monthly mortgage. I wanted desperately to fit in. The seating chart told me everything. While Ethan sat at the head table with his family and Victoria Ashford, yes, she was naturally invited, I was placed at table 12 with the junior staff from Clark Corporation when the pharmaceutical executive beside me asked, "So, are you Mr. Clark's new assistant?" I felt my cheeks burn. During Evelyn Prescott's speech, she thanked everyone who made the foundation possible. Her children, each named with their accomplishments. Victoria for her continued dedication to their causes. The board members. The major donors. My name wasn't even mentioned after the 40 hours I'd volunteered. "At least you got to attend," Ethan said later when I told him how hurt I felt. Some spouses aren't even invited. But that night, something inside me shifted. I went home and registered my business as a sole proprietorship, legally separate from any marital assets. I opened accounts Ethan would never see. I began documenting everything, every slight, every exclusion, every quiet cruelty. It felt like the universe was preparing me for something. My company was thriving while whispers swirled that Clark Corporation was crumbling. Ethan had been coming home later, his excuses growing more creative. He'd take calls behind the locked door of his study. And Victoria, her presence at family events had become strangely constant. "You're paranoid," Ethan said when I asked about her. "She's just a family friend." But family friends don't text your husband at midnight. Family friends don't leave lipstick stains on wine glasses that match the shade on your husband's collar. While they built their walls, I built my empire, never imagining those same walls would become their prison. Staying silent had its cost, paid in small daily installments. In Boston's elite circles, my reputation was managed not by me but by the Clarks. At social events, Evelyn Prescott introduced me as simply Ethan's wife, never by my name, never as the owner of a thriving business. The message was clear. I was an accessory, not an equal. The financial impact was even sharper. Several potential clients quietly backed out after hearing concerns about me. One CEO confided, "Evelyn Prescott Clark suggested we hire someone more established. That contract alone would have been worth $300,000. Then came Ethan's ultimatum. We'd been married 4 years when he sat me down in his study. Divorce papers were already drafted, just waiting for signatures. "If you can't learn to fit in with my family, if you keep causing tension, maybe we should reconsider this marriage," he said. The papers stayed in his desk drawer like a silent threat. No Clark heir yet? Evelyn Prescott would ask at every family gathering, her tone making my empty womb sound like a personal failure. "What exactly do you contribute to this family?" she once asked. The pressure to have children became another weapon. Ethan insisted on waiting until I was more settled into the family, translation, more compliant. But I noticed things they assumed I was too insignificant to grasp. Clark Corporation's stock had been falling for 18 months. They'd lost 3 major government contracts. Ethan's trust fund, left carelessly open in a bank statement, was nearly depleted. The family's financial advisor was making increasingly urgent house calls. They were drowning in debt while maintaining their golden facade. And I, the outsider they barely tolerated, was the only one in the family turning a real profit. My business accounts showed steady growth while their empire quietly crumbled. They just didn't know it yet. The pressure spiked last month. Evelyn Prescott's lawyer drafted a post-nuptial agreement 5 years into our marriage. It was insulting. If we divorced, I'd receive $50,000 and nothing else. My business, they claimed, had been built with Clark connections and should be considered marital property. "Sign this or watch your little company crumble," Ethan said, sliding the papers across the breakfast table. "Mother knows every event planner in Boston. One word from her, he wasn't wrong." Evelyn Prescott had already launched her Whisper campaign. 2 venues suddenly overbooked when I tried to reserve them. A catering company I'd worked with for years abruptly cut ties, apologizing because Mrs. Clark was a major investor. But while they were playing checkers, I was playing chess. Every threat was documented. Every financial irregularity was photographed. Late one night, I found Ethan's laptop open and discovered something explosive. Clark Corporation was under federal investigation for tax evasion. The family was bleeding money on legal fees. Their Rome birthday celebration, Evelyn Prescott's 70th, was their Hail Mary. 200 of the world's most influential people would attend. If they secured just 3 new investors from that crowd, they might survive. The entire family fortune depended on that week being flawless, and so they came to me. "We need the best event planner," Ethan said 3 months ago, not even realizing the irony. "This has to be perfect." I smiled and agreed, knowing they'd never read the contract carefully. Why would they? To them, I was just Olivia, the nobody from Brooklyn who should be grateful for scraps. But they signed over complete control of their most important event to the very woman they'd spent 5 years humiliating. The post-nuptial agreement still sat unsigned on my desk when we left for Rome. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, hit that subscribe button right now. Your support helps me share these stories about standing up for yourself. Comment below. Have you ever been deliberately excluded from a family event? How did you handle it? And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply enforcing your boundaries. I read every one of your comments about similar experiences, and my heart goes out to each of you. You deserve to be valued. Now, let's continue with what happened when we arrived in Rome. Rome was meant to be Evelyn Prescott's triumph. The entire Clark clan descended on the 5-star Palazzo Margherita like conquering heroes. 200 guests were flying in from Dubai, Tokyo, London, the kind of people whose names appeared in Forbes rather than gossip columns. I had orchestrated every detail through my company for the past 3 months: the welcome reception at the Galleria Borghese, the private yacht tour of the Amalfi Coast, the grand finale at a restored Renaissance villa, $2 million of meticulously orchestrated perfection. What the Whites never realized was that every contract bore my company's name, not theirs. My room assignment should have been the first red flag. While the family claimed the entire penthouse floor, I was tucked away in the annex. "Oh, your room," the concierge said, glancing at his list when I asked. "Mrs. Carter, you're in the garden wing. It's quite lovely." Translation: as far from the family as possible, while still technically being at the same hotel. Ethan vanished our first night in Rome. His phone went straight to voicemail. At the hotel bar, I found his sister Laura, 3 martinis in, loose-lipped and smirking. "Business," she said. "That's what we're calling Victoria now, isn't it?" I spent that night alone in my garden view room, laptop open, combing through contracts. Every vendor agreement, every venue booking, every single detail was under Carter Events International. The Whites had signed the master agreement without reading it, trusting their pathetic daughter-in-law wouldn't dare exert real control. The irony tasted exquisite. They'd exiled me to the edges of their celebration, never suspecting I held the center. Tomorrow would launch 3 days of scheduled events leading up to Evelyn Prescott's birthday dinner. 3 days of careful humiliation they'd planned for me. They had no idea they were dancing on a stage I could collapse with a single phone call. By the second day, the small cruelties began, each one deliberate. At the welcome brunch, Evelyn Prescott's eyes swept over me. "That dress is almost the right shade of white, Olivia." Almost. Never quite right. During the yacht tour, Ethan's cousin Tyler laughed when I tried to board with the family. "Oh, you're the wife. We thought you were event staff." Laura pulled me aside at the museum reception. "You understand why Mother's particular, don't you? You're just not what we envisioned for Ethan. Ethan needs someone who speaks our language," added Sabrina Patricia, the same woman whose husband had embezzled half her trust fund. The whispers shadowed me everywhere. "That's her, the one from nowhere. I heard she trapped him. Poor Ethan, stuck with that." But the real blade came when I saw them together. Ethan and Victoria, laughing by the fountain at the villa. She wore the diamond bracelet I'd watched him buy last month, the one he said was for his mother. Her hand rested on his chest with casual intimacy. When she noticed me, she didn't even flinch. She smiled and waved, secure in her position. "Don't make a scene," Ethan warned when I stepped closer. "Not here. Not with everyone watching." And everyone was watching. That was the point. The guests had begun to notice. The wife standing alone, the ex-girlfriend at the husband's side, the family's obvious preference. Some looked sympathetic, others amused. I was the entertainment, the cautionary tale of what happens when you marry above your station. That night, I found them in the hotel corridor. Victoria was adjusting Ethan's bow tie, their faces inches apart. "After Mother's birthday?" he was saying. "I'll file the papers." 5 years was too long to wait, Victoria replied. I stepped back into the shadows, my phone already recording. The stage was set. Tomorrow was Eleanor's grand birthday dinner. Tomorrow everyone would finally see who truly held the power. I couldn't sleep after what I'd overheard, so I did what I always did when stress clawed at me. I worked. At 3 a.m., I sat alone in the hotel's business center, finalizing details for Eleanor's dinner, when Ethan's phone buzzed. He'd forgotten it after slipping out earlier. The preview lit up the screen. "Can't wait for our announcement tomorrow. V." My hands didn't even tremble as I unlocked it. His password was still his old college jersey number. The messages between him and Victoria stretched back 2 years. 2 years of I love yous while he lay beside me. Photos from secret trips he'd claimed were business conferences. And worse, far worse, their plans. Once the divorce is final, we'll merge the Ashford and Clark assets. Another read, "Your mother's birthday will be the perfect setting to announce our engagement." And from Ethan, "Olivia's company could be useful. We'll say it was built during the marriage." Victoria's reply, 5 years of watching you with her was torture. But tomorrow everything changes. The final betrayal was a thread with Evelyn Prescott, my mother-in-law. She had been orchestrating this for years. The seating for tomorrow's dinner was arranged. Olivia, me, wouldn't even have a place. When I made a fuss, Ethan would confide in others, citing my unstable behavior. They wanted to humiliate me so deeply I'd seem hysterical, unhinged, the villain in their story. The unstable wife who couldn't handle her place in society. I screenshotted everything and sent it to my lawyer, then placed Ethan's phone exactly where I'd found it. Walking back to my room, I passed the grand ballroom where tomorrow's dinner would unfold. 200 place settings gleamed in the moonlight. 199 chairs. They thought they'd counted correctly. They thought tomorrow would destroy me. They had no idea it would destroy them. The morning of Eleanor's birthday, an email changed everything. Marcus Chen, CEO of Stellar Events International and my mentor, had sent a simple note. "Reviewed the contracts as requested. Remember, you have full control as primary contractor. The emergency cancellation clause is ironclad. Whatever happens today, you're protected." I'd been building this safety net for months without realizing how much I'd need it. When the Clarks had insisted on using my company for this event, their arrogance made them sloppy. They never read the fine print, never noticed that every vendor contract gave me the right to cancel immediately. Marcus had taught me well. "Always maintain control of your events," he'd said when I first started. "You never know when you'll need to pull the plug." At breakfast, I sat alone as usual while the Clarks held court at their long table. Eleanor glowed, accepting birthday wishes from arriving guests. Ethan didn't even glance at me. He was too busy whispering with Victoria. They were practically shining with anticipation. "Today's the day," I overheard Laura tell her mother. "Everything finally goes back to normal. Normal. Where Victoria belonged and I didn't. Where bloodlines mattered more than love and money more than loyalty." My phone buzzed again. Another email from Marcus. "BTW, saw the Clark Corp investigation news. If they lose your event revenue and deposits, bankruptcy is inevitable. Your call. But I have 3 major clients ready to book those same venues and vendors immediately." I smiled into my coffee. The Clarks had spent 5 years making sure I knew I had no power in their world. They were about to learn I'd built my own world with rules they'd never bothered to read. The birthday dinner began in 6 hours. 6 hours until their carefully planned humiliation became their complete undoing. 2 hours before the dinner, I made the call that sealed the Clarks' fate. My lawyer, Laura Mitchell, had been waiting. "I've reviewed everything," she said. "Every contract is under Carter Events International, your sole proprietorship. The Clarks are signed on as clients, not partners. The cancellation clause is clear. You can terminate everything immediately for breach of professional conduct. And the deposits are non-refundable. $800,000 they can't recover. Plus, they're liable for the full venue fees regardless. Another $400,000. What about Ethan's claim to my business?" I asked. Laura laughed. "Your business was established before your marriage and maintained as a separate entity. His name appears on nothing. That post-nup he wanted you to sign? It would have protected you more than him." I stood on the balcony, watching the sunset wash Rome in molten gold. Below me, the staff moved with quiet precision, finishing the last touches. Florists were arranging centerpieces worth more than my parents' car. A string quartet tuned their instruments, practicing Evelyn Prescott's favorite piece. The 7-tier cake, a towering masterpiece, had arrived an hour earlier. Every vendor had been paid in advance from the Clark account. Every contract carefully worded so that cancellation meant forfeiting payment. I'd designed it that way months ago, never imagining I'd actually need it. It was just smart business, or so I told myself. A way to protect my vendors from fickle clients. "One more thing," Laura's voice had said earlier, calm but razor sharp. I had my paralegal look into the Clark Corporation. If tonight fails and they lose those deposits, 3 creditors can call in their loans immediately. They'll be bankrupt in a week. "I'm not trying to destroy them," I had replied, though my voice betrayed a tremor. "No," Laura had agreed softly. "You're just refusing to let them destroy you. There's a difference." I ended the call and began dressing for dinner. The red gown I chose clung to me like fire. Perfect, fierce, a declaration of war disguised as evening wear. The grand ballroom of the Palazzo Margherita glittered like Evelyn Prescott's dream of heaven. Crystal chandeliers poured golden light across tables dressed in silver and silk. Orchids flown in from Thailand cascaded from the ceiling. The guest list was a parade of power. Ambassadors, CEOs, dynasties of old money and sharp new wealth. I arrived at precisely 8. My red gown blazed like a warning flare in a sea of soft pastels Evelyn Prescott had requested. Heads turned as I entered, scanning for my place card among the elaborate settings. Table 1, the Clark family and Victoria. Table 2, the Ashfords. Table 3, European nobility. I walked the entire room, checked every place card, 199 seats for 200 invited guests. My name was nowhere. "Excuse me," I asked a server quietly. "There must be a mistake." "Where's my seat?" The young man looked stricken. "I'll check with the coordinator." But I was the coordinator. This was my event, my staff, my meticulous orchestration. And someone had deliberately erased me. The murmur started small, rippling outward as guests noticed me standing without a seat. Some whispered behind their hands. Others stared openly. The abandoned wife, adrift at her own family celebration. Ethan appeared at my elbow, his cologne laced with Victoria's perfume on his jacket. "There seems to be some confusion," he said loudly, his tone warm enough for the nearby crowd. "Perhaps you could check with the staff. I'm sure they can find you something in the back." The back? With the servers and kitchen staff? 5 years of marriage. 3 months of planning this event. A lifetime of trying to belong. Evelyn Prescott's voice rang out from the microphone at the head table. "Ladies and gentlemen, if everyone could find their seats, we're about to begin." Everyone but me. I stood in the center of the room, alone in a crowd of 200. Exactly as they had planned. Evelyn Prescott's eyes met mine across the ballroom, her smile a thin blade. "Oh dear," she said sweetly into the microphone. "Did we forget someone?" The room went still. 200 faces turned to me, standing alone in my red gown, a drop of blood on marble. Ethan joined his mother at the head table, taking the microphone with practiced ease. His smile was casual, cruel, Oops! Guess we miscounted. The chuckle that followed was worse than the words. I'm sure the staff can find you a chair somewhere. Victoria laughed from her seat, my seat, beside Ethan. She wore white that looked bridal in its intent, her hand resting possessively on the chair he should have pulled out for me. Perhaps, Evelyn Prescott continued, reclaiming the microphone. The help can find you something from storage. We wouldn't want you to miss the celebration. The help. After everything, I was the help. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. I caught the German ambassador's wife frowning, the Japanese CEO looking away. But most watched with the same fascination reserved for public executions. This is what happens, Evelyn Prescott said lightly, her gaze locked on mine, when we don't properly verify our guest list. Some people assume they're invited when really they're just adjacent to the actual family. Adjacent, not part of. Never part of. Laura began a slow, deliberate clap 3 beats before others joined in, thinking it some kind of performance. The applause swelled as I stood frozen, my humiliation now a standing ovation. Ethan returned to his seat, pulling out Victoria's chair with a flourish. She kissed his cheek as she sat down, her lipstick leaving a bold mark for all to see. The signal was unmistakable. I was out. She was in, and this was their public coronation. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I refused to perform the meltdown they'd scripted for me. Instead, I smiled, not a weak smile, not a broken one, but the knowing smile of someone who's finally learned the rules and realized they've already won. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice slicing through the hush of the ballroom without a microphone. Years of presenting to CEOs had taught me how to project command. I reached for my phone with deliberate calm, my eyes locked on Evelyn Prescott. The crowd held its breath, transfixed by my composure. They'd expected tears, begging, a scene worth gossiping about. Instead, they got something far more dangerous: absolute control. Excuse me one moment, I said, still smiling. I need to make an important call. Ethan's smirk flickered. Victoria's hand clamped onto his arm. Evelyn Prescott's eyes narrowed, the first flicker of doubt. I scrolled through my contacts slowly, letting the silence stretch. The room was so still I could hear the soft clink of ice in glasses, the faint rustle of silk as people leaned closer. What are you doing? Ethan hissed, rising from his chair. My job, I replied simply. Marcus Chen answered on the first ring. I hit speaker. His voice rolled through the ballroom like thunder. Olivia, is it time? Yes, I said, looking directly at Evelyn Prescott. Execute the emergency cancellation protocol immediately. Understood. Confirming cancellation of all Clark events under Carter Events International's authority. The words detonated like grenades in the silence. Evelyn Prescott's face drained of color. Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came. Victoria's perfect lips formed a stunned "oh." You've made your position clear, I told Evelyn Prescott, my tone like tempered steel. Now let me make mine. This is where everything changes. If you're still watching, you know exactly what it feels like to be pushed too far. Before I reveal what happened next, please take a moment to like this video. It helps others find it. Have you ever had a moment when you realized you were stronger than your bullies believed? Share it in the comments. I read every single one, and your stories of strength inspire me. Now, I continued, let me show you what 5 years of preparation looks like. Marcus's voice filled the room again, crisp and professional. As CEO of Stellar Events International, I confirm your sole authority as primary contractor for all Clark Corporation events. Shall I proceed with immediate termination? What is this? Evelyn Prescott shot to her feet, her composure fracturing. You can't. I can, I cut in, pulling up the contracts on my phone and casting them to the ballroom's massive screen, a feature I'd personally installed for presentations. Every detail of this week-long celebration was contracted through Carter Events International, I said. My company, my contracts, my decision. The master agreement appeared, 30 feet tall. The Clark signature glared back at them from the bottom. This is ridiculous, Ethan sputtered. You're my wife. What's yours is mine. Actually, Marcus's voice cut through, Carter Events International is a sole proprietorship established before your marriage and maintained separately. Mrs. Carter has exclusive authority. Gasps rippled through the room. The German ambassador's wife raised her phone to record. The Japanese CEO allowed a small, knowing smile. Society reporters typed furiously. Furthermore, Marcus continued, per Section 8, Subsection 3 of your signed agreement, the contractor retains the right to terminate immediately for breach of professional conduct, including harassment, discrimination, or deliberate humiliation of the contractor or their representatives. I am the contractor, I announced to the room, and I've just been publicly humiliated by my clients. Evelyn Prescott sank back into her chair. Reality was sinking in. Every dollar spent, every arrangement made, every moment of this week ran through my company. Marcus, I said, still calm, still in command. Notify all vendors. Full cancellation. Immediate effect. With pleasure, he replied. Estimated time for complete shutdown? I asked, glancing at my watch. 30 minutes, Marcus confirmed. Then give them 30 minutes to say goodbye, I said. The ballroom screen erupted with contract after contract as I scrolled through my phone. Each vendor's name flashed long enough for the guests to read it. Carter Events International. The yacht tour tomorrow? I said conversationally. Cancelled. The private plane to the Amalfi Coast? Grounded. The finale at Via Corsini? The venue is already being cleared. You can't do this. Ethan was on his feet now, his face blazing red. It was your mother's birthday. That celebration, her birthday party, wasn't just about cake and champagne. It was supposed to lock in 3 major investors, the last chance to save Clark Corporation from bankruptcy. I raised my voice just enough for everyone to hear. Oh yes, I know about the federal investigation, the tax evasion charges, the unpaid loans. The room burst into murmurs. Several investors were already edging toward the doors. Every single vendor, I continued, steady and cold. From the florist to the 5-star hotels, you all dealt with me, not Clark Corporation. Which means every contract is mine. I held up another document. $800,000 in deposits, non-refundable, paid directly to my company, and an additional $400,000 still owed in venue fees, whether this party continues or not. Evelyn Prescott rose to her feet, trembling. You little... Careful, I warned softly. Defamation is also grounds for additional penalties under our contract. Victoria's voice cracked through the tension. This is insane. Ethan, do something! I turned my gaze on her. What would you like him to do? Call the lawyer who approved these contracts? Or perhaps the family attorney currently defending Clark Corporation against federal charges? Then I faced the crowd. For 5 years, this family told me I was nothing, nobody. Not worthy of their name, their table, their son. I looked straight at Ethan. You signed every contract without reading it, because you couldn't imagine I had any real power. You miscounted more than chairs tonight. You miscounted me! My voice rang out, crisp and final. Effective immediately, all Clark family events are canceled. The hotel will require checkout by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Your rooms are paid through tonight only, exactly as the contract states. Around the room, the giant screens, originally installed to display Evelyn Prescott's life story, now showed a countdown timer, 28 minutes until complete shutdown. La Pergola, Imago, and Glass. Your restaurant reservations are canceled. The private Vatican tour, the string quartet, the DJ for tomorrow's yacht party, the fireworks display, all canceled. Evelyn Prescott clutched her chest, swaying. 2 guests tried to steady her, but she shoved them away, her eyes locked on me with pure hatred. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the crowd, many openly filming now. I'm sorry for disrupting your evening. But, as you've seen, the Clarks are meticulous about counting who belongs and who doesn't. They've made it clear I don't count. So neither does this celebration. The money, Ethan whispered, his face draining of color. You already paid $1.2 million, I confirmed. All non-refundable, per the terms you signed. Your mother demanded the best and signed for the best. She just forgot the best was mine to give, or take away. The German ambassador's wife stood abruptly. "This is the most extraordinary thing I've ever witnessed," she said, beginning a slow clap. This time the applause was real, genuine, not mocking, as others joined in. Evelyn Prescott sank back into her chair, the reality crashing down. Without this week, without these investors, Clark Corporation was finished. Generations of family fortune destroyed in one deliberate act of defiance against the wrong person. The timer showed 25 minutes. Catering staff were already clearing tables. Security entered, not theirs but mine, hired through Carter Events International. Professional, calm, unmistakable. "Ladies and gentlemen," the head of security announced, "we've been instructed to escort all guests from the premises within 20 minutes. Please gather your belongings." "This is assault," Ethan shouted, charging at me. Security stepped smoothly between us. "It's contract enforcement," I corrected. Page 47, Section 12. Upon cancellation, all event spaces must be vacated within 30 minutes. Lights dimmed from the edges inward. Music stopped. Servers boxed silverware and centerpieces with practiced efficiency. Even the 7-tier cake was wheeled away untouched. "Please," Victoria grabbed my arm. "My family's here. My parents. My business partners. This humiliation?" I finished for her. "It's exactly what you planned for me. Except I'm not leaving you to stand alone. I'm simply ending a business arrangement." She dropped my arm as if burned. Around us, the chaos was orderly but absolute. Investors called lawyers. Society matrons phoned their drivers. The press was having a field day. Ethan made one last attempt. "Olivia, you're my wife. This is community property." "Your prenup," I reminded him, "which you insisted I sign, specifically excludes all business ventures established before our marriage." Carter Events International was incorporated 2 months before we met. "You protected yourself from my nothing. Congratulations." Evelyn Prescott, supported by Laura, paused as she passed me. Her face was a mask of fury and disbelief. "You've destroyed us," she hissed. "No," I replied calmly. "I simply stopped letting you destroy me." There's a difference. With 10 minutes left on the clock, the Clarks made their last desperate play. Evelyn Prescott, Ethan, and their lawyer cornered me near the exit. "Name your price," Evelyn Prescott said. "All pretense gone. What will it take to reverse this?" "There is no price," I answered. "The contracts are final." "We'll sue," the lawyer threatened, though his voice wavered. "Please do." I showed them an email on my phone. "My attorney has already reviewed everything. You signed away your right to dispute cancellation in the force majeure clause. You wanted ironclad contracts. You've cornered them now. The vendors can't back out." Ethan snatched the phone, scrolling in panic. "It says we still owe another $400,000, even if we cancel. Venue minimum fees. Due in 30 days. Check page 63 of what you signed." But Eleanor's voice cracked. "Without these investors, we'll lose everything." "You should have thought of that before you tried to cut me out," I said, calm and steady. Victoria appeared with her parents, all three pale and tense. "The Ashford merger," she whispered to Ethan. "Tell her." "Maybe if she knows?" "I already know." I cut her off. 2 years of messages between you. The announcement planned for tonight, and Ethan's divorce papers accusing me of being unstable. I turned toward the growing crowd of guests, leaving in confusion. "Would you like me to share those screenshots with everyone here?" The Ashfords stepped away from Ethan as if he were toxic. Victoria's father, a man whose empire was built on reputation, looked disgusted. "We're leaving," he said sharply. "Victoria, come." "But Daddy—" "Now." He glanced at me, and there was something like respect in his eyes. "Well played, Mrs. Carter. 5 minutes left." The ballroom was nearly empty. The grandeur dismantled. The illusion shattered. I walked out with my head high, leaving the Clarks in the wreckage they'd built. Behind me, the chandeliers dimmed section by section, like a theater closing after its final act. In the lobby, chaos swirled. 200 guests, angry, stunned, fascinated, struggled to process what had happened. Some rebooked flights. Others called lawyers. Reporters swarmed. "Mrs. Carter," one shouted. "Can you comment on what just happened?" "I enforced a contract," I said simply. Nothing more, nothing less. My phone buzzed with new messages. 3 major event planning clients, impressed with how I'd handled it, wanted to book immediately. One was from Marcus. 3 venues open on the dates you just freed. "Shall I proceed?" "Yes," I texted back. I'd already packed my bags that afternoon, sensing this outcome. The taxi to the airport waited, booked under my own company card, not the Clark account. As I crossed the lobby, something unexpected happened. The German ambassador's wife stopped me. "That was magnificent," she said softly. "My daughter's wedding is next year. May I have your card?" Then a Japanese CEO approached. "I need someone with your attention to detail and your backbone." By the time I reached the taxi, I had 7 new business cards and 12 serious inquiries. The Clarks had tried to destroy my reputation. Instead, they'd made me legendary. My phone rang one last time. Ethan, decline, block. Then Evelyn Prescott. Block, Laura, block, Victoria, block. 5 years of chasing their approval, erased in one night. I realized I'd never needed it. The taxi pulled away as the hotel lights dimmed behind me. By the time my flight landed in Boston, Darntier Clark disaster was trending worldwide. A guest's video, Evelyn Prescott's desperate, "Did we forget someone?" followed by my calm response, had over 3 million views and counting. The immediate fallout was brutal for the Clarks. Guests from Dubai paid triple for last-minute hotels. The Japanese delegation missed their connections after the planned transport was canceled. One Saudi prince's aide sent a $50,000 inconvenience fee directly to Clark Corporation. But the social consequences were even worse. Boston society, obsessed with appearances, does not forgive public humiliation. Charity boards where Eleanor sat called emergency meetings. Their country club, a family fixture for 90 years, reviewed their membership. Victoria's family distanced themselves immediately. Her father released a statement. The Ashford family has no association with Clark Corporation and was unaware of the evening's planned events. The merger, their last hope, was dead. My lawyer, Laura called as my taxi rolled through the city. Ethan's attorney reached out. "They want to discuss settlement terms." "For the divorce?" I asked. "No, for the contract breach. They can't pay the $400,000. They're requesting a payment plan." I almost laughed. They'd tried to make me sign away my rights for $50,000. Now they were begging for payment terms on money they owed me. "Standard terms," I said. 30% interest on late payments. The best part came from an unexpected direction. 3 of Evelyn Prescott's closest friends contacted me privately. They wanted my help drafting airtight contracts for their own events. Translation: they'd seen what happens when someone crosses me and wanted to be on my side. Within a week, Clark Corporation imploded exactly as predicted. 3 major creditors called in their loans after the Rome debacle made international news. The federal investigation deepened as investors reported suspicious financial statements. The board held an emergency meeting and voted Ethan out as future CEO. Eleanor's charity, the Clark Foundation, lost 5 of its 8 major donors. "We cannot be associated with such public cruelty," one wrote in their withdrawal letter, copying me on the email. Boston's most exclusive gala was canceled indefinitely. The family began liquidating assets. First, the Beacon Hill Mansion, priced under market, desperate for cash. Then the Martha's Vineyard Beach House. Then the art collection, the vintage cars. Even Eleanor's prized jewelry. Ethan's personal collapse was swift. The board discovered he'd been using company funds for trips with Victoria, filed as business expenses. Embezzlement charges were added to his legal troubles. His trust fund, already drained, couldn't cover his lawyers. Meanwhile, my business exploded. The Rome video became a masterclass in contract management and professional boundaries. Event planners studied it. Business schools requested case studies. I received invitations to speak at 3 major conferences. and Marcus Chen delivered on his partnership offer. Carter Events International became a proud subsidiary of Stellar Events, with me leading the North American division as president. My first-year revenue projection? $12 million. The irony wasn't lost on me. At our signing dinner, Marcus said, "The Clarks could have been your greatest allies. Instead, they became your best marketing campaign." He was right. Every client who came to me knew exactly who they were hiring. Someone who couldn't be bullied, couldn't be pushed aside, and absolutely couldn't be counted out. The divorce was quick and uncontested. Ethan couldn't afford to fight it, and any judge who'd seen the messages between him and Victoria would have ruled against him anyway. I asked for nothing beyond what was already mine. My company, my dignity, my future. "Don't you want alimony?" Laura asked. "You're entitled." "I don't want a penny," I told her. "Let him keep the family name, and all the debt that comes with it." My success drew far more attention than I ever expected. In the first month after Rome, we booked 53 events. But what fascinated me most were the clients, other outsiders who had married into powerful families, entrepreneurs dismissed by old money, immigrants who built empires while being told they didn't belong. "You gave us permission to stop trying to fit in," one client told me, a tech CEO shut out of San Francisco's elite circles. "You showed us that building our own table is better than begging for a seat at theirs." I moved into a penthouse in the Seaport District, a sleek, modern space that was everything the Clark Mansion wasn't: bright, open, and completely mine. No portraits of disapproving ancestors, no rooms I wasn't welcome in, no history that didn't include me. 3 months after Rome, I was having coffee in Back Bay when I saw them, Ethan and Victoria at a corner table. He looked older, worn down. She looked furious. They whispered harshly about money, promises, and how this wasn't what she'd waited 5 years for. They saw me. I could have walked past, pretending not to notice. Instead, I smiled, genuinely, without malice, and gave the same wave Victoria had given me by the fountain in Rome. Then I walked on, leaving them to their own misery. 6 months after Rome, I gave my first keynote speech at the International Event Planners Conference. The title, "Boundaries Are Not Walls: Professional Power in Personal Situations." People ask if I regret what happened in Rome, I told the audience of 2,000. I regret that it took 5 years. I regret every moment I dimmed my light to make others comfortable in their darkness. But I do not regret standing up. The lesson was never about revenge. It was about realizing that seeking approval from people who've already decided you're unworthy is a game you can't win. The only winning move is to stop playing. Boundaries aren't walls of anger, I explained. They're bridges to self-respect. When someone shows you over and over that you don't matter to them, believe them, and act accordingly. My new policy was simple. I didn't work with clients who disrespected me or my staff. I didn't attend meetings where I was treated as less than. I didn't dim my success to make others comfortable. The Clarks had taught me one unshakable truth. No amount of accommodation is ever enough for people determined to see you as beneath them. A year later, Ethan reached out through a mutual acquaintance. He was now a mid-level manager at a small firm, living in a studio apartment. Victoria had left when the money ran out. His family blamed him for their downfall. He wanted to meet to explain. I declined politely. There was nothing left to explain. He had shown me who he was. Every time he let his family humiliate me, every time he chose their approval over my dignity, every time he whispered, "Just ignore it," instead of standing up. Success, I learned, isn't the best revenge. Success is just success. The best revenge is living a life where the people who hurt you no longer matter. Today, 3 years after that night in Rome, Carter Events International is valued at $40 million. We now have offices in Boston, New York, Los Angeles, and yes, Rome. That same hotel where Evelyn Prescott Clark tried to erase me? We now hold the exclusive contract for all their international events. The Clarks are now a cautionary tale in Boston society. Evelyn Prescott lives in a small apartment in Brooklyn. ironically not far from where my parents raised me. A dynasty built over 5 generations was destroyed in 30 minutes because they couldn't grant one person basic respect. Last year, I met someone new. Tyler owns a tech company, comes from a middle-class family in Michigan, and has never once apologized for my success. His parents, both teachers, were thrilled their son had found someone so accomplished and kind. Imagine that, being valued for who you are, not despite it. The truth I learned that night in Rome is simple. You don't need their table when you own the whole restaurant. You don't need their approval when you have your own applause. You don't need to be counted by people who've already decided you don't count. If you're watching this and sitting at a table where you're tolerated but not celebrated, where you're present but unseen, where you're constantly told you're not enough, listen closely. You are not too much. You are not too little. You are not too anything. You are exactly enough for the people who deserve you. The Clarks spent 5 years trying to convince me I was nobody. They were right about one thing. I was nobody to them. But I was somebody to myself. And in the end, that's the only count that matters. Stand up. Walk away. Build your own table. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve your seat. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below, what's one boundary you wish you had set earlier? Remember, you don't need anyone's permission to know your worth. I post news stories every week about standing up with dignity and grace. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Your comments mean everything to me. I read every single one. And your stories of strength inspire me daily. And always remember, the best revenge is a life well lived on your own terms. Until next time, this is Olivia reminding you, never beg for a seat at a table you can flip.